Rastafari. Greetings, all. Ras John Farah here again. I want to share this story with you. An article written by Brother Ronald Shaw, a good brethren of mine, called The Untold Story of the African Liberation Movement in America, Malcolm X, the OAU, and Rastafari. Basically, one thing to know is that the whole movement of Rastafari and of the teachings of Gedamawe Haile Selassie inspired Brother Malcolm to broaden his cause for liberation of people of African descent, Ethiopian Hebrews here in the West, as well as back in Africa, was intertwined by the teachings of Abba Janoi. And then upon the founding of the OAU, which later Malcolm would form the OAAU, Organization of African American Unity, based off the OAU, which was founded by Abba Janoi, Haile Selassie, who said, "Today we name as our first great task the final liberating of those Africans still dominated by foreign exploitation and control," which was the goal of the OAU, and that's what His Majesty said was the main charter of the OAU. Now, here's interesting. On January 4th, 1965, the same day that the New York Times reported that Malcolm X had gotten 33 African heads of state to support his petition to the United Nations, J. Edgar Hoover, director of the FBI and its COINTELPRO program, and ones who study COINTELPRO know that their goal was to stop the rise of the Black Messiah. And the Black Messiah they were trying to stop from rising to millions of the scattered ones in the diaspora was Gedamawe Haile Selassie. And I suggest ones read my book, Rastafari Over Illuminati, where I explain how they cooked up this godless and creeping coup against the king and basically try to discredit him in the eyes of many, especially those and ones in the diaspora of Ethiopic Hebraic descendants. So Malcolm X flew on February 4th, 1965. Malcolm X flew to Selma, Alabama to show support for Dr. King, who was in jail. Malcolm was scheduled to give the third of his lectures reviewing the plan to Black America on February 15th, 1965. And as you know, his goal was to bring the rights of millions of ones to the United Nations. And what inspired him to do this was, of course, when he went on the Hajj to Mecca, he went to Ethiopia. And if one's read my book, I mentioned how one of his aides wrote a book called Remembering Malcolm, and how he said that during the trips to the East, he was impressed by Ethiopia. He actually wanted to live there and wanted to make a place of refuge there. But he, of course, came back. He should have realized that he was at his home and not come back to New York, where eventually he would be assassinated. And he even was said and mentioned that he would be giving refuge by the Ethiopian government of Gedamawe Haile Selassie. And he said in the book, and I suggest ones to check it out, it's called Remembering Malcolm, how he said he met the Holy of Holies, which we all know who the Holy of Holies is, and that was Abba Janoi Haile Selassie. Now, on March 12, 1965, the New York Times printed a story somewhere in its back pages with the headlines, "World Court Opens Africa Case Today," on Monday, The article stated that the International Court of Justice will open oral proceedings Monday in the case of linking the segregation struggle of the American Negro and the fate of 430,000 African Bantus and Bushmen at issue in a 4-year effort by Ethiopia. Now read that, Ethiopia and Liberia, the only two independent African nations at the time. But Ethiopia was the one spearheading this unity between the struggle of ones on the continent and those in the diaspora, to bar South Africa from applying her race separation or apartheid doctrines in Southwest Africa, which she controls. Had Malcolm lived to that time, the history of the world as now told would include how Malcolm X and MLK was the support of Gedamawe Haile Selassie, and the Ethiopian government argued the case, and 22 million Africans in America before the International Court of Justice. It would have been the biggest legal case ever and dominated the world news had justice been served, reparations, repatriations would have been followed. Instead, MLK and Dr. King were murdered, and black people rioted. So again, through the power of His Majesty, Malcolm and Martin really would have, if they had lived, made the case more for ones and ones of black liberation. So I will get into part two of this discussion, brothers and sisters, and this is here's a Rastafari RBG flag. Selassie I, Jah Rastafari.